The morning started like any other on my family's ranch, quiet, wide, and endless. But as I drove along the gravel road toward the southern fence line, a strange unease built in my chest. There were tire tracks where there shouldn't be, dust clouds rising from places that had no reason to be disturbed. And then I saw them, bright orange survey flags stabbing into the soil like tiny insults. Heavy machinery sat humming near the old cattle shed, and a group of men in safety vests clustered around blueprints spread across the hood of a truck. Confused, I parked and walked over. One of them, a man with a smug smile and an HOA badge pinned to his vest, stepped forward as if he owned the place. "You're trespassing," he said. I almost laughed. "This is my land." He shook his head, lifting a clipboard filled with documents and signatures, none of which were mine. "Not anymore. The HOA has rezoned this entire area for a luxury residential expansion. The sale is completed." My heart slammed against my ribs. You can't sell land you don't own. But he just shrugged with the calmness of someone who believed he was untouchable. He handed me a packet, maps, forms, stamped approvals, and a forged signature that was supposed to be mine. They'd filed paperwork claiming my property fell under their extended jurisdiction, a fake clause buried in a document they created themselves. I called the sheriff, but the man already knew the outcome. "Civil dispute," he said, refusing to get involved. By noon, the HOA had fenced off a quarter of my family's 1,500 acres. By sundown, they bulldozed my grandfather's old barn, a piece of history worth more than any contract. That night, staring at the flattened foundation, I made a decision. They'd stolen my land illegally. But I was going to make sure justice came back around, legally. For 3 days, I barely slept. Every hour I spent pacing the ranch office felt like a year, my mind replaying the same questions. How did they get away with this? Who signed off? Where did their authority even come from? Finally, I decided I wasn't fighting this battle alone. I drove into town and walked straight into the office of a property attorney known for tearing apart fraudulent land deals like a wolf on a carcass. He didn't say much at first, just motioned for me to place the HOA's documents on his desk. He adjusted his glasses, and for the next 40 minutes, he read in complete silence. Every now and then, he chuckled under his breath in that "these idiots really thought this would work" kind of way. When he was done, he leaned back, folded his hands, and stared at me with an expression that almost looked amused. "They made a mistake," he said calmly. I blinked. "Only one. A big one." He opened a county map, tapping a red boundary line with his pen. "Your family's original parcel extends farther than you think. When the HOA built their subdivision, they placed the entire development inside this boundary. They thought the land was abandoned decades ago because the county map was misfiled. They built their homes here illegally." My breath caught. I leaned closer. "You're saying the HOA's neighborhood, their houses, are on my land?" He nodded. "Every last one. And since the HOA wrongfully claimed your 1,500 acres, you now have the legal right to claim theirs." The room fell silent as the weight of that truth settled over me. They forged documents. They rezoned illegally. They bulldozed my heritage. But in their carelessness, they had built their own homes on land they never owned. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the faint flicker of justice. If scene 2 was the spark, scene 3 was the wildfire. I followed my attorney's instructions down to the letter. No shouting. No threats. No emotional outbursts. Just calm, calculated, legal pressure, the kind the HOA never expected from the rancher they thought they could bully. For weeks, I gathered every deed, every tax receipt, every map dating back 3 generations. My grandfather's meticulous handwriting, my father's signatures, old county surveys, all of it formed a wall of proof stronger than anything the HOA's forged paperwork could stand against. My attorney filed motion after motion, requesting injunctions, freezes on their development, and property audits. Every file we submitted peeled another layer off their lies. Then came the moment the tide truly turned. One morning, just after sunrise, the county sheriff, yes, the same one who once brushed me off, pulled up my driveway. But this time, he wasn't here for me. He stepped out holding a thick stack of documents stamped with the county seal. By order of the court, he said, clearing his throat awkwardly, we're serving the HOA a cease and desist on all construction activities. Also, their property titles are under investigation. I didn't smile. Not yet. But I felt something shift, something big. By noon, HOA board members were gathered outside their community office shouting into phones, pacing like ants in a burning anthill. Their lawyers scrambled to explain how an entire subdivision ended up on land they couldn't legally prove they owned. That evening, my attorney delivered the final blow. A formal notice of intent to sell, served to every homeowner. Not a threat. Not revenge. Just the law, reflecting back exactly what they tried to do to me. The HOA president stormed onto my property, red-faced and trembling with rage. You can't do this, he yelled. But I just handed him a copy of the notice. I'm not doing anything, I said. The law is. And for the first time, he had no words. Word spread faster than wildfire on a dry summer morning. By the time the county authorized the sale, developers, ranchers, land investors, and families looking for acreage were already circling like hawks. The HOA, once so smug and loud, had gone almost eerily silent, except for the panicked whispers leaking from their emergency board meetings. They had tried everything: appeals, injunction requests, desperate calls to the county commissioners. But forged documents collapse fast under real law, and the judge dismissed their pleas in under 10 minutes. The morning of the auction, the courthouse lawn was packed. People examined survey maps, property outlines, and photographs of the subdivision the HOA had proudly advertised as the most secure community in the county. Now the same homes sat on land they never legally owned. The HOA board members stood together, pale and trembling, clutching briefcases like shields. The president looked like he hadn't slept in a week. When I walked past them, he tried one last time. This is insane. You're destroying families. I stopped, looked him square in the eye, and kept my voice steady. You destroyed mine first. The auction bell rang. Parcel by parcel, the land beneath their homes sold, cleanly, publicly, with every step documented and legal. Some parcels were bought by developers with big plans. Others were purchased by private buyers who wanted rental income. A few neighbors begged me for mercy, and I offered what the HOA never did: fairness. Those who approached respectfully were given first options to buy back the ground under their own houses at a reasonable rate. But the HOA board? They weren't offered anything. They were outbid, outmaneuvered, and legally undone by their own arrogance. By sunset, the subdivision no longer belonged to them. It belonged to the buyers. All because the HOA thought they could steal from the wrong man. The day after the auction, the world felt strangely quiet. No heavy machinery grinding against the soil. No HOA board members barking orders. No forged notices taped to my gate. Just the wind, soft and familiar, sweeping across the restored 1,500 acres like a long-lost friend returning home. I walked the fence line just after sunrise, watching the light spill across the land my family had protected for generations. The fields were scarred from the HOA's reckless development, torn earth, broken fences, the ashes of my grandfather's barn still dark against the ground, but for the first time, the damage didn't feel permanent. It felt like the beginning of repair. Far off, the subdivision the HOA once bragged about sat strangely still. Some houses were already empty, their driveways littered with moving boxes. Others had new owners walking the lots, taking measurements, planning futures the HOA could no longer dictate. The board members themselves were nowhere to be seen, their offices had been cleared out overnight, leaving behind nothing but dust and the faint smell of panic. Standing there, I didn't feel triumph. Not gloating. Not vengeance. Just something cleaner, steadier, justice. They tore down my family's history. They stole what wasn't theirs. They tried to drown me in forged contracts and legal tricks. But the law had a long memory. And it remembered who this land truly belonged to. As the sun climbed higher, I rested my hand on the old wooden post where my grandfather once carved our family initials. It was still standing, even after everything. I whispered, "We got it back." And with that, I turned toward the future, my land restored, their empire undone, and the balance finally set right. If you want